Hi guys, so if you watched yesterday's video and I was complaining a lot about my mosquito bites, I feel like it worked. I feel like the topical creams and the antihistamine pills and the gross drink with the garlic and lemons and chili peppers and all that, I feel like it all helped. And the bug spray, I don't know. I'm not feeling anything right now and it feels great. But anyways, we're still out here. There's kind of weird stuff happening with the Wi-Fi. And I wanted to talk about the Great Downsizing because I know people are talking about the Great Downsizing. What is it? Is it a conspiracy theory? Is it a weird myth or whatever it's called? And so I want to talk about it really quickly. And obviously, there's a lot of changes happening right now, I feel like, economically, and it's really interesting to watch. I feel like when you don't feel attached to the outcome and when you don't feel like your whole life is dependent on it, it becomes a lot more bearable to watch and even interesting and fun. But when you're in it and when your whole life is being upended because of so many economic changes, people just don't want to hear it, they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to think about it, but it's really important to understand what it is so that you can be prepared for yourself, for your loved ones, for your kids, your future. And so obviously, there's a lot of changes happening. A lot of it has to do with increased communication, ability to move around, people being exposed to other economies, just something that was bound to happen just by people being exposed, different economies being exposed to each other. So there's this equalizer happening where people in the US, let's say, are seeing how cheap things are, like us kind of are the example of us, people in the US seeing how cheap things are in other parts of the world, and we're constantly meeting other Westerners that were yeah, I've just spent the past 8, 10, 20 years outside of the US and I never want to go back, just because they're just being exposed to other cheaper economies and cheaper labor or whatever they can get. And then there's, of course, people from other economies being exposed to Western economies and being oh, I want to go there, I don't want to go back to my third world country or wherever I came from, because there's things that those people can benefit from. Oh, I want a better job, a better lifestyle, more progressive lifestyle, so things like that. And so there's just so many different reasons why that would happen. But as time goes on, all of those changes are happening much faster and more acutely. And so what's happening is the changes that are happening are going at a much faster rate than a lot of people are able to keep up with. And the governments are trying to keep up with it. They're all right, so in the US, there's so much opportunity moving around, people are making so much progress, and they're optimizing their companies, they're going out, they're able to make so much more money, for example, because they're outsourcing things, or they're using technology, they're using AI to make things go faster. So people like me, for example, that are using technology to run their real estate models are competing with people that were using older models, and we're able to do things faster just because we have technology. Or people that are doing e-commerce, for example, are able to make more money and do things faster because they're able to hire people from other countries to do their telemarketing and things like that, and they don't have to pay people on the ground as much. And so it's just getting more expensive because you're competing with, so now your business is competing with those people, the people that are taking advantage of all these new opportunities, right? But then what happens when you have to compete with those people? Everything becomes more expensive because you're competing with so much bigger things than what you were dealing with before. So then everything just gets more expensive. And then you're dealing with inflation, and then not to mention there's all these random things like the government stuff, Biden, Ukraine, Russia. I don't know what they're doing to cause you know, you know, we don't want to use gas from this country or that country or whatever. So there's a political stuff. And then on top of that, people are like, oh, well, in order to keep up with inflation, we need to raise the minimum wages. We need to raise regulation on those businesses. We need to, like, you know, try to like force it. And so they do that, which they don't realize they make it worse. So that added makes everything more expensive, because obviously when you raise minimum wage, you're basically accelerating inflation. You're basically making the cost of everyone's business becomes more expensive, and people think that their jobs are forever. Like, it's, you know, it's especially a lot of, you know, America's enjoyed a very calm period for a while, so like people kind of assume that they're going to have their jobs forever and ever and ever, and the reality is that they're not going to have their jobs forever. But it's easy to fall into that trap when you've been in a very comfortable economy for so long and you've never remembered what it was like to like really struggle. And by really struggle, I mean like third world country type of struggle. So people are forgetting that. And then they're kind of like getting comfortable in this sort of this pattern. And they don't realize, they're like, oh, well, I'm just gonna demand that I get paid more. I'm just gonna demand that I get these benefits. I'm just gonna demand that I get this and this and this and this and this. My boss has to comply. I'm gonna demand that I can't get fired. And it's like, well, your boss isn't forever. Your boss's business isn't forever, and so your job isn't forever. And so a lot of companies, and we just heard the latest is Target. Target is moving to a completely e-commerce system. You know, they're trying to become like Amazon, where it's completely like e-commerce. They're going to fire all their on-the-ground people. They're going to fire all the people that are like, you know, working in the stores. They're going to make everything online. And they're going to hire, instead of having to keep up with these expensive, like, you know, American, you know, you don't need to hire a bunch of Americans for an e-commerce store. You can just hire Jennifer and Tim and Taylor and Chet from Pakistan, you know, to do your phone stuff, to manage your phone, and they charge very little, and they don't have all these requirements that, you know, Americans do, or anyone in the West does. And not that that's bad, you know, but it could be very uprooting for a lot of people in the West that aren't prepared for that. So all I'm telling you guys is not that you're like useless or your job is useless, but just be prepared if what you're doing is something that could be easily replicated by AI or like by much cheaper labor in another country. Then be prepared. Either, and like we said, like I was talking about in another video, every like problem is obviously an opportunity for fixing. And if you think that your business model is easily replicated in another country, well, go take advantage of that. Go be the person that capitalizes. Don't be a victim of your own situation. If you're like, you know, if you're a telemarketer person and you're working in a call center and you're like, oh no, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose it to like another. Don't be a victim of that situation. Go be the person that capitalizes on it. Go, you know, or organize a team of call center workers from another country for stupid cheap, and be the one English speaker, because speaking English is so valuable, and you can sell that service to other people for very cheap, because you have like a whole team of call center workers or whatever you're doing. Like, you know, you don't have to be a victim. You just have to understand that change is coming, understand that you know, you're competing with people that are now using like technology, they're now using AI, they're using cheaper labor from other countries, and like all these things that are happening that you're having to now compete with. Instead of being a victim of all these changes, you have the opportunity to be aware that these changes are coming and totally become a boss from it. So anyway, hope that was inspiring and uplifting in some way, and y'all are having a wonderful whatever today is.